This is a True Crime in Real Time update from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Tony Brueski. I want to start by painting a picture of the narrative the jurors in the Delphi trial of Richard Allen were expected to accept, and ultimately did accept because 75% of the story in this case was never given to them. Imagine this. A man wakes up, visits his mom, then, for reasons entirely unknown, decides it's the perfect day to abduct and murder two teenage girls. He's a 45-year-old CVS clerk, a man with no criminal record, no history of violence, no disturbing internet searches, nothing. He served his country honorably as a National Guardsman. Yet, on February 13th, 2017, he allegedly arms himself with a gun and a box cutter, wanders onto a public trail, and just happens to stumble upon Liberty German and Abigail Williams. Despite his small stature of 5'4", he supposedly manages to corral and control both girls, leading them to another man's property where he undresses them and slits their throats. And somehow, after committing this horrific crime, he leaves behind no DNA, no fingerprints, and no physical evidence directly tying him to the scene, just a single unspent bullet, which the prosecution claims was cycled through his gun. This is the story the jurors were given, and yet even this fragmented narrative doesn't include everything they should have known. Let's talk about what was kept from them in the form of an open letter directly to any of the jurors who were on this case. Dear jurors, first, I want to commend you for your service. You stepped into a courtroom carrying the weight of an entire community's grief. You poured weeks of your lives into examining evidence, listening to gut-wrenching testimony, and deliberating over the fate of a man accused of an unspeakable crime. You did all of this under the belief that you were armed with every fact, every piece of evidence necessary to render a fair and just verdict. But here's the heartbreaking truth. You weren't. Imagine, for a moment, finding out that the entire time you were deliberating, crucial pieces of the case were being withheld from you. Pieces that could have changed how you viewed the evidence. Pieces that could have introduced doubt where certainty seemed to exist. You thought you were seeing the whole picture, but in reality, Judge Francis Gull handed you only fragments of it. You didn't know about Keegan Kline, the predator behind the Anthony Shots profile. This man communicated directly with Liberty German just before her death. You weren't told that his disturbing online presence and criminal history made him a potential suspect, someone who could have lured the girls to their tragic fate. If you had known that, would you have questioned whether Allen was truly the only viable suspect? And then there's Ronald Logan. His property was the crime scene, and he lied about where he was that day. You weren't informed that the FBI initially flagged him as a person of interest. His false alibi, coupled with his proximity to where the girls' bodies were found, painted a suspicious picture. Yet, you were asked to deliberate without ever hearing his name. Would knowing about Logan's actions have planted a seed of doubt in your mind? Perhaps the most egregious omission was the Odinism theory. The defense argued that this was not just a random act of violence, but a ritualistic killing tied to a group practicing Norse paganism. They provided details of specific individuals linked to this belief system, individuals who could have been the real perpetrators. But you never heard any of this. Judge Gull decided it wasn't worth your time, that it wasn't relevant. Imagine the frustration of learning this after the fact. What if this alternative explanation had been the key to understanding what really happened? And then there's the misfiled tip, a crucial piece of evidence naming Richard Allen as a person of interest sat collecting dust for 5 years. It was a monumental error that delayed the investigation and potentially allowed key evidence to slip through the cracks. You weren't told about this misstep. Instead, you were presented with a narrative that suggested a seamless investigation leading straight to Allen. Knowing about this could have changed how you viewed the prosecution's case. Could it not? So even the confessions Allen made in prison were presented to you without context. Over 60 admissions, the prosecution said. But did they tell you about the conditions under which these confessions were made? That Allen was isolated, mentally deteriorating, and under immense pressure. Without that context, those confessions may have seemed like the smoking gun. With it, they become much less reliable. And let's talk about the forensics. A single .40 caliber bullet found near the girls' bodies allegedly cycled through Allen's gun. That was the linchpin of the prosecution's case, but no DNA, no fingerprints, no physical evidence directly linked him to the crime scene. You weren't told about other potential suspects whose weapons were never tested. Would that have raised questions about the strength of the forensic evidence? I think it might have. Now, as you sit with this new information, I imagine you're feeling a mix of emotions: anger, frustration, maybe even betrayal. You gave everything to this case, believing you were armed with the truth. But the truth was filtered. Judge Gold decided what you could and couldn't handle, and in doing so, she didn't just rob Richard Allen of a fair trial. She robbed you of the chance to deliver true justice. Justice isn't about making the process easier or more convenient. It's about ensuring that every piece of evidence, every possible angle is laid bare for the jury to consider. That's what you signed up for. That's what you deserved. Instead, you were handed a fraction of the truth and asked to fill in the gaps yourselves. You did your job. You worked tirelessly, and you reached a verdict based on what you were given. But now you know you weren't given everything. And that's not on you. That's on a system that let you down. A system that decided you didn't need to see the full picture. For that, I am truly sorry. Thank you for your dedication and your service. You deserved better, and I hope you hold your heads high, knowing that you did the best you could under the circumstances. Sincerely, all of us on the outside who saw the facts. And that's it. A message to the jurors who served on the Richard Allen trial, a group of people who did everything right only to be let down by a system that held back the truth. This trial isn't just a case study in justice. It's a case study in how justice can be manipulated when key information is withheld. Thank you for listening to Hidden Killers. Don't forget to hit subscribe and stay with us as we continue to dig into the cases that demand more from our justice system. Until next time, keep questioning, keep digging, and let's keep holding those in power accountable.
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface,
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
where hidden killers roam unnoticed in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic, very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Brueski as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point on narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you've taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski.